comes down from come up from Bedala, haven't you?
Yep,
today?
didn't have to come too far.
Yeah. I think Cameron can tell you what he's doing as he goes along. You don't need me to talk for you.
No, you're right, Hilda, thanks.
Just welcome, and I hope you have a good day.
Thanks a lot, you too.
Nice to have you here.
Thanks, yeah. Guess what I'll do today, I'll take you through what my lesson's like these days. Just spent last week at Brookvale TAFE and it works really well. Normally I'll show you a few instructions and everyone runs off and gets on the wheels, and I've got a full-time assistant, and then we get everyone up to that stage and then another instruction. By the end of the week everybody's throwing everything, so it seems to work really well. I'm just going to throw a bat pad first. Bat pad's just a plate without a rim. But, I like the bat pad just to be nice and flat with the edge curled up slightly. Don't do the grooves and any of that business. Just like it to be as flat as possible, slightly dished, just with the edge lifted up. And I think learning how to centre a small ball of clay, just using one hand and not looking at it, is what I consider to be the first step. I think it teaches people to centre instantly instead of taking a long time. If you don't look at it, then you're not relying on your eyes to pick up the information, and you rely on your hands, and your hands they're far more responsive, and it's where you really do get just about all the information you need anyway. So, throw the ball on and seal it on. Now you get your left hand, you make a box out of it. Okay? When I mean a box, I mean you need a right angle in those knuckles, so that within this hand you've got two really distinctive points that you're pushing with. Not just one big flat pad that's on the side. Your thumb goes flat across, and you're sitting so close your elbow jams against your hip or your leg, and the side of your hand will come in against the side of the clay there. If you picture this as a wheel head, on the wheel head as a clock face, then you'll be coming in the side here at about 9 o'clock, so directly on the side. And put some water on, thumb flat across the top. Then you move your wrist from 9 o'clock around to 6 o'clock. And you hold that steady. And you try and shut your hand like it's some kind of like a clothes peg shutting, with your thumb flat across the top. And you just hold that there, and then you take it away. And then that works. You're using the bone in your arm here it's like a mechanical device. Because as it goes from here to there, the pressure builds up on the base of on the butt of your hand, and that's where you're getting all your pressure from. And whilst it's only a small piece of clay, what I'm showing you translates to when you want to get bigger and bigger. That's the main thing, and that gets your timing right. So you're feeling the clay, and you're getting it centred really quickly. Out of this, you usually make a 3-step bowl. I like to keep the instruction pretty simple at the start, so that when everyone goes off to the wheel, I've only got 3 things to remember. If there's too much, you give everyone too much info, then everyone runs off confused, and it's really hard to actually teach them. So I'll leave my left hand on the side. I get my right thumb out like a hitchhiker style, and that thumbnail goes right in the very centre. My right fingers point back towards me. And I just focus on pushing that right thumbnail down the middle. Those fingers back towards me, so it's the shape of that right hand. Those fingers get under there, and that puts this in a good shape for the next move. Okay, you've got them right in underneath there, so you haven't got the clay wandering off over the back. You've got somewhere really defined to start your next move from. And the next move is what I call like a duckbill with your left hand. So you keep your fingers straight, thumb like that, so you squeeze against those fingers. And on top of that, I put the web of my finger, so that when I squeeze here and the clay rises up, the web of my finger sits on the rim and controls the rim as it comes up. So there's nowhere there that I don't have control of the clay. Not like I've just got 2 points on the outside squeezing and bringing up. It'll always come up unevenly. Use your left hand and squeeze like a duck's bill into the web of that finger. And pinching right down the bottom. There. And the inside fingers just work their way from the bottom and back up to the top here. I've left all my regular throwing tools on the bench here at Brookvale TAFE. I've got myself a little B grade selection here, but it'll do for today. So that's like the first thing that you do. You learn to make. You just lots of ways of getting this off too. With this sort of thing, you just lift it off and put it on. But after that, you usually throw on 2 to 3 times the amount to do a larger bowl. That's the next thing. You throw the clay on, seal it on the tip of the finger. And the elbow anchored in front of you. These are tend to, I'll cone it up and push it down again. I made this clay before I went away, so it's a little lumpy. It'll be okay for me. So with the bigger bowl, open up. I'm still going to open up with the thumbs. I'll open up with both thumbs now. Concentrate on that one being in the middle. There. And the first move I do this time is using my left hand again, like a box, on the side, and I angle it out. So I want the bowl to start coming out for me. I have my hand, it's a box hand, angle it out like that, and I use my right hand next to it, like a duck bill, and it just angles across. Those fingers work against the butt of that hand, so I'll squeeze and clay rise up. And I'll stop there. I haven't even gone up yet. I've just stayed right at the bottom and squeezed, and the clay has risen up off the bottom. Then I'll make sure everything's kind of lubricated well, and I'll relax my left hand and I'll pinch with my right, allow that to spread. When I get to the top, I'll put the web of my finger over the rim and consolidate it.
When you're coming up the side, do you open that base at the same time?
No, I open the base up with my 2 thumbs to begin with,
And then
so that gives me that shape,
yeah.
the bowl, and then I'll pick up from there. But now I'll go right into the very centre with these fingertips, and I'll push down, I'll make my way out, and I'll come up against my right knuckle. This is where I start using my knuckle and my thumb to squeeze the clay up.
You compress the bottom too?
Yes, I've kind of done that at the start, but even now too, I'll always start right in the very centre. I know if it's stoneware, it's always a good idea to work your fingers back into the centre. What I do with my hands, I'll make a set of tongs. Okay, I've got my thumb and knuckle, and with my left hand, I put that back of that thumb in that little saddle there. These fingertips come down against that part of my knuckle. So I can reach in and I can squeeze, and I've got good communication between inside and outside because they're connected. I always start right in the very middle and I work the fingertips back towards until they find that knuckle. And squeeze, and the fingertips sit on top of the knuckle, and then the knuckle moves along at the same time. Just before I get to the top, I'll squeeze my left thumb against the finger next to it, and that'll spread the top out. If you've got 2 points right next to each other, inside and outside, you separate them and twist, it'll spread the pot. Rather than just pulling on the inside and having an oval or a teardrop shape, there's too much stress on everything underneath. When you're shaping bowls, I find the most critical thing is how to adjust the pressure as you come up the side. Right in the very bottom there, in the middle of the bowl, I've got the support of the bat underneath, and you have to push really quite hard on that area to send it out to where you want the bowl going. But as soon as you leave the support of the bat and the wall of the pot's in mid-air, you have to be incredibly gentle with it. Otherwise you'll overstretch the wall and you'll get that hump that develops around there. I'm just going to use my hands to do the finishing on this one, because when I start on the cylinders, that's when I like to begin talking about the ribs. Like I said, I'm showing you my lesson plan when everyone's got wheels and off you go. So at this stage I don't talk about ribs yet, I just talk about how to move the clay around and how to do a little bit of finishing. The next one we do will be a cylinder, and that's when we start using the ribs. Yeah, so I'll press quite hard in the middle there, but right on this spot here where you've got the transition of the support underneath into the wall of clay in thin air, that's where you need to be really careful. And the clay loves to spread out. You look at it the wrong way, it'll overstretch. That on the back. Oh yeah. So next one's a cylinder. It's actually easier, I find it easy to explain and make like a larger cylinder than a small one to start with. By a small cylinder I mean something you make a coffee cup out of. I'll show you a bit later today, but it's actually more complicated to explain all the intricate little moves. And the thing about the cylinder is it's so close to the movements of the bowl. They're all the same hand movements. The only difference is the position of your wrist that changes. So it's the perfect thing to teach people after they do this one. Because all the moves are already there. It's just have to adjust the pressure and the position of your wrist. Stick that on properly. Get that centred, and instead of opening up like a bowl where you hold your wrist over there and you get your thumb out, the hitchhiker thumb, actually pretty well you want to drill a hole straight down so your wrist goes over the middle of the wheel. Follow that right thumb in with my left thumb. Stop before I get to the bottom.
Do you like to leave a fair amount in the base when you do that?
Not particularly. I really only want, I've got less than a centimetre there, around about a centimetre. Now to open up a cylinder, I'm not going to open it up and leave the base at the same time. What I'll be doing is I'll focus just on the very tips of those fingers. I'm just going to just tunnel back towards myself. I really don't want to touch any other part of the pot. Just tunnel back towards myself. Really easy just to move one fingertip through the clay. And that'll undermine it all. And then on the way out, a little bit of pressure on the inside wall and it'll open it up. So it's more of a two-step thing rather than trying to open it up and leave a flat base at the same time. And the fingertips back to the centre, consolidate the base. Okay. Now with the bowl, I have my left box hand on the side and it was angled out, and I have my right duckbill angled across like that and my wrist out here, and that was how we made the bowl. It's the same thing, but your box hand is in a upright position, vertical, and your right wrist is over the middle of the wheel like that. Now it's important for this right hand not to actually go looking for any work. This right hand it's a post that I want to work against. So in order to be a post, it's just got to stay there and wait for a bit of pressure to arrive at it before it does anything. It's all up to this left hand to squeeze that clay in. So once again, like the bowl, my hands haven't really moved up. I haven't gone squeeze, up I go. I've stayed down in that position at the bottom, and I've just squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And that's displaced all that clay and it's lifted it all up. Then I'll do the same thing. I'll tend to relax the grip so that all the slurry goes back on, and then I can do a second little squeeze which just teases the rest of that clay up at the top. It's a really energy efficient move. You're working with the clay, it's coming into you, the clay's not going away from you. Now I get the sponge in front of my fingertips, those two fingertips on the outside, so I want to gather up all this clay I've got out on the back here. And against that I use the same fingers on the inside. So push down, in and under, and give that a bit of a pinch. Now I'm going to leave that left hand there because it's in the right position and I'm using the right fingertips. And I'm going to switch over to my thumb and knuckle on the outside, and I'm going to have the sponge in the middle there. So it gives me constant lubrication. One of the big things that brings you unstuck is if you're getting halfway through a move and all of a sudden it starts to dry up and you hit a dry patch and the whole thing gets a twist in it. Managing the slurry for your whole moves are something I do. The sponge satisfies that. Difference too here with the bowl. My wrist was out here when I was doing the move. Now it's got to be directly over the middle. Squeeze on the inside, my inside fingers find the tip of that knuckle. As soon as they sit on top, the two have to go up together. This time I've got my right elbow anchored. I've just got it on my leg here in front of me, and it means you can just, if your elbow's anchored, just draw that line in the air, and that gets you up through this area. Gets you there because you're just pivoting on your elbow. Stop there and collar the wrist. to work. I guess the first rib I pick up would be one of these wooden ones, or same thing as mouse. I guess that's the better one, the wooden mouse rib. And, hold it with the curved side up and the pointy bit down, and actually angle it back towards into the clay so that blade cuts the clay away. Push down the bottom corner and just take away that little bit of clay at the bottom and clean that all up. Get water out. Now I'll turn the rib around, use the flat side, anchor my elbow here. I'll bring that in against the side and I'll push right down the bottom corner. Find the rib, and my fingertip moves up the side of the rib until it gets to the top of the rib, and then the rib and my fingertip holding that point of pressure just move up at the same rate. So that's the cylinder and introduction to tools. Just get to pick a bit of a rib up. Put it through the middle. Thick in the bottom, but actually thin bits down there. It's silly. So, once you've got the hang of that, you're all covered in mud, you're all stressed out, you'll come back. The next thing you do is turn a cylinder into a vase. When the balls of clay start getting a little bigger, I tend to go straight to the top and put a bit of a point on them, so that when I do go down and bring that clay up, I've always got a point at the top. I don't get that crater when you just bring the sides up.
All the newspaper funny.
Open it up inside. Be careful that doesn't go again.
Keep doing it.
Put the base established there. And try and get this up. If that comes off again, I'll just get some softer clay. Right. I'll get my fingers behind that sponge, push down, in and under on the outside, squeeze against the thumb and knuckle. Now each move you do, all you're really doing is setting it up for the next move. Make sure I don't leave too much clay at the top, so that when I pull it up next time I haven't got too much to wrestle with right up there. Alright, leave it there. There we go. Right back down the bottom again. Push in and under, a bit of a pinch. I'm going to make a vase on the cylinder, so I go a little bit further in under at the outside. Thumb and knuckle. I might even do one more pull after this, so I'm not going to take heaps up. And I'm allowing it to spread as well on the inside. Pinch quite hard now. I want to get all that clay up this time. The inside fingertip, my index finger is actually pointing back towards me. What you need now, little just points of pressure. Sort of stop there, and some of the fingertips on the inside, look, they're actually pointed back at me. And it's this main fingertip here, that the tip of my left index finger, and the one next to the long finger, that stays straight. Now that inside index finger just connects directly with that knuckle, and that next finger connects there. I've got 2 points there. That this first one is where I really squeeze it hard, and this next one is where I steady what I've thrown. And the thumb sits just on top, right where that ridge of clay is. Find if you've got 2 points on the outside that are squeezing in against one on the inside, it'll give you a cylinder, make the clay go up. Whether it's this, sort of using broad areas of your hands, or your thumb and knuckle, you find you need those 2 points on the outside. I want to collar this a little and bring it in. Now I'll use some ribs. I've got the stainless steel mouse and the stainless steel kidney. I use the kidney on the inside and I hold it on those 2 fingers, and I hang on to it with the thumb and the back of that finger next to it. So it means you can get right down to the bottom corner, you can get right up the top. It represents that part of your hand really well, and you can hang on to it. Now I always start bellying from the top. I find if I start bellying at the bottom, I lose on my height, and you've got that, you're putting a bulge in the bottom and you've got all this weight on top of it, and you're only supporting it in one little point, then it kind of, it just sinks. But if you put that bulge at the top where you don't have that burden of gravity and just chase that bulge down, then you retain most of your height. What I do with the ribs, I position them so they both know where each other are, and then when I want to belly the pot out, I separate them. When I want to just compress the wall, I bring them together. As if I belly this into a spherical form, then I'll start at the top and I'll separate them, and as I go down I'll separate them quite wide, and as I get to the bottom I'll bring them back together. The important thing is that I've got equal amount of pressure on the inside and outside. If I'm only pushing on the inside, then the whole pot just gets pushed over. You've got to have even pressure. The pot's got to stay in the middle of the wheel. Separate them. I've really separated them through there. And bring them back together down the bottom. And now hold that bottom rib steady. And I can go from the bottom to the top without worrying about losing all that height. That sounds like my wife's phone. I guess what I can still get under there. I'll probably get the water out. That's the next thing. Back to that thing we learned. Angle that point back towards me to remove any excess down the bottom. There. Jump in and get rid of that. Oh, thanks. Promise I'll stop making you do that soon. Water in there. So I took that bit of excess away. Now I turn the rib around, I use that flat side. So that can go right down the bottom corner and support. When I leave the support of the bat, I can come up against that and I can compress that bottom part of the pot against that rib and get a really solid launch, you know, from a pot. Was it? Down there, just with your fingertip, just compress the wall against the rib. What I want there is a straight area anyway. Even though I'm trying to make something round, I need straight to, you know, to lift the whole thing up. It's like when you're turning bowls, that little area, just the first part of the pot after the foot has actually got to be straight to, you know, give the pot some lift. Then I'll drop that rigid rib, and I'll pick up one of these flexible ribs because I'm going from that straight area into a curved area. Hold the rib on there, and I'll pick it up from that last point of centre where I left off with the wooden rib. And just with one fingertip on the inside, anything with not much drag. I'll stop putting water on the pot a while ago. I like to use these ribs. They don't have much drag and they can support quite a large area. Now if I do need to work on anything up here, then I'll get the slurry that's collected on my hands. Just make sure I lubricate that one bit I want to work on. The closer you get towards the end of the pot, the more gentle you have to be with the whole thing. A bit of the rim.
Is that a bit of chamois or something you use?
A little bit of plastic.
Plastic?
Yeah.
I often use plastic.
Chamois a bit rough for me. It leaves, do with your web of your finger what you can do with the chamois. The plastic gives you that shiny, clean, round finish. Yeah.
That won't need turning, will it?
No. No, I don't.
Finished pot.
Yep. Tend not to turn vases. If I'm doing porcelain or something, I will. I'll put it upside down. Shave it really clean. But this rough old earthenware stuff, I hate to go near it with a turning tool. You can though. You can turn it, but it means you've got to compress it all and wet it.
It doesn't need it, does it?
It just doesn't. That's cylinder turned into a pot using the ribs.
There is a bit of